Namaste everyone. Welcome back to my show with your host and your host RJ Megha. I am back with another podcast with an expert, a subject matter expert in the field of finance. He has a proven track record in business, in finance, and is a professional chartered accountant in Bharat. His name is Vikram Achareja. You can read research about him on his LinkedIn page and also see his description under this YouTube link. We are going to discuss the Indian budget of this year, which is 2025, its top highlights, and give you updates on its NRI impact because I know a lot of my viewers are within the US and want to know how this affects you, your tax returns, and what you should be doing if you are outside of Bharat. Vikramji, welcome to my show and Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram Megha ji, happy to be here.
Thank you for your time this Sunday, lovely, amazing morning. And I know you're ready to sort of enjoy it. Can we quickly walk through your experience? I know you got your chartered accountancy in 1983. Can we quickly walk through how you worked your journey in so many years?
Well, I qualified as a chartered accountant in 1983, and I immediately joined, as it happens, an American accounting firm's Indian office, which is Arthur Anderson, and I worked there for 13 years in assurance or audit and business consulting. And I left there in the year 2000 as a partner. I moved into investment management, where I worked with a fund doing venture capital, private equity, market equities, real estate investing. And after 6 years in a stint and 3 years later, 9 years there, I ran a PMS also for a while. But now I only look after my own investments. So it's been a long track record and a little bit kicked back now.
Nice. I am sure you've made a lot of money for yourself.
Let's say I'm satisfied. Very
That's amazing. I mean, eons of experience. So, yes, I am sure. Um,
uh,
Vikramji, let's get right into it. So, how do you think did the current administration, of course, the BJP or the finance minister, do for
yes.
the common people, the common man, the common Indian society, the middle class that always takes the brunt of when a budget comes out, right? Is bar kya kiya is the common question. So, could you quickly tell us what happened?
Yeah, so many of your viewers might already be knowing, but the big headline of this budget was that in India today, after this budget, a person who is earning 12 lakh rupees does not have to pay any income tax. And I'm told
Fantastic.
that's about 13,000 US dollars. I'm told that even in the US, a person who's earning $13,000 as an individual, because of course in the US you have joint taxation for married individuals, married people, and all that,
Right.
uh, does actually end up paying tax. So this is the big headline in terms of relief, or the feedback I'm getting is great satisfaction among what is known as the middle class. But sometimes we have to argue whether the real middle class of India is even a taxpayer. I mean, so the headline is 12 lakhs, no tax. And if it's salary income, it's 12 lakhs 75 because there is a 75,000 rupee deduction from salary, which used to be 7 lakhs. So that's a big jump. That's the headline of for middle class relief. But you've got to keep in mind that there were just 7 crore taxpayers in India, a country of almost 150 crores. So even out of those 7 crores now, probably 5 crores of them will be out of the tax net because of this relief. So income
Wow.
tax is actually a very narrow source, personal income tax, very narrow source of taxation in India. Corporate income tax and the goods and services tax are the main sources of revenue for the central government, and that's what the budget also shows, roughly equally from these three sources.
That's fantastic. It's amazing. So somebody who's salaried in India has a very good year this year.
Yes, and that's right. A salary of 1 lakh a month, which is not insubstantial, given that many things in India are one third or one fifth, the price, especially services.
Right, right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you see any changes in deductions or any increases in, like, somebody had to get life insurance or somebody gets other sort of insurances? What are those deductions? How are they calculated?
Yeah, no, so, the change that I mentioned is what is known as the new tax slabs. And already more than 70% of assessees were filing under the new tax slab. So the deductions you're referring to were only available in the old tax slabs.
Okay.
The intention of the government is to voluntarily move more and more people into the new tax slabs by increasing the benefits here, which is this 12 lakh deduction limit. They have not at all changed the deductions for things like insurance or provident fund or pension scheme, etc., which were available in the old regime. But that made it complex. They want to empower the taxpayers, that you decide how much you want to spend and how much you want to save, and don't let that decision be mediated by the fact that if you save this, I'll give you a tax reduction, but if you spend it, I want to tax you only if you have income above 12 lakhs, and then you decide how much you want to spend and how much you want to save without any interference of deductions for this investment and not for that investment. So that's, we expect that instead of 70%, by next year more than 90% of the individual income taxpayers will be filing under this new regime, which is where they won't have to pay any tax even up to 12 lakhs, although they have to file a return if they have more than 4 lakhs of income.
Okay. And if there's somebody who makes an income and they're 60 and older or 65 and older, how does that work?
So there again, in the old tax regime, there was an extra 50,000 off.
Right,
Yeah, yeah, if you were a senior citizen,
right.
but there's no such thing in this new regime. The
Okay.
only benefit for a senior citizen, a person over 60 in the new tax regime, is that they are not subject to advance tax. So they can pay all their taxes in one go at the end of the year when they're filing their returns. So the year ends in March, they file the return by June or July. Whereas for people under the age of 60, and if they have income which has not been subjected to tax deducted at source, then they need to compute their own advance tax and pay in four installments. So in June, September, October, and March. And then when they file their return, if there's anything left, they have to pay that again. So there's a small benefit for senior citizens as far as taxation is concerned. There
Okay.
are other benefits that are not related to taxation. For example, healthcare has now been made available to every individual in India over the age of 70. Earlier, the Prime Minister's healthcare scheme was applicable to people, to 50 crore Indians who were below a certain income threshold.
Mm.
Everybody else had to buy their own insurance. But now that has been widened up outside of the budget. This happened a few months back, in fact, closer to the previous budget, which was presented after the elections, that every individual over the age of 70, regardless of income, can get enrolled on that scheme, which gives them an annual health coverage of 5 lakhs. Some states have topped it up, and some are offering 7 or 8. And Delhi, the BJP government that is going to come into Delhi, because you probably know that the Delhi state elections results were declared yesterday. They have promised to give this healthcare benefit to all the citizens of Delhi up to 10 lakhs coverage.
That's fantastic. Is there anything that happened in the budget this year that you think they could have done better on?
The glass is always half full.
Yeah.
So this year's budget, thanks to this tax relief, is said to be consumption oriented. So
Okay.
some people say that the previous 3 or 4 years were more uh, capital investment by the government spending on creating infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this year's budget also has a trillion rupees plus, that is 1 lakh crores in the way we speak, uh, of capital expenditure, but it also has cost the government. I'm sorry, it's 11 lakh crores of capital expenditure that is planned in this budget, but it's also cost the government 1 lakh crores. This increase of slab, which I mentioned as the headline, of from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs, has cost the government a loss of revenue of 1 lakh crores. So had this not happened, perhaps capital expenditure spending would have been greater. But we are a growing economy. GDP growth in the budget has been projected at 6.4%. And so that is in real terms. So if you add in inflation, which is expected to be around less than 5%, so
Right.
we expect nominal growth of 10% in the economy as a whole. So I do think that capital expenditure, infrastructure expenditures will again be enhanced in the following years. But this year, after this tough election which happened last year, and this budget also came before the Delhi elections, I'm sure it had a political impact as well. Delhi has a lot of central government employees, and generally speaking, a lot of people were really euphoric or enthusiastic about this tax relief, and I think it did have a bearing on that as well. I didn't want to get too political, but it's gone in that direction.
Well, I mean, any taxation, any year, I kind of agree with you. There is a lot of political impact more than any other aspect
Yes.
to a budget that comes out for a country. Do you see how this will affect an NRI? What's the take? What's the impact of this year's budget on an NRI?
No, I didn't note too many changes for NRIs. I'm not practicing in taxation, so I have to give that caveat. But one general observation is that there is a greater tax information exchange between India and its counterpart countries. So I think, I mean, my overarching general suggestion or advice to NRIs would be that don't presume that one country's agencies don't know the other country's information, and so keep your filings kosher, keep everything above board. For example, there are a number of new NRIs, that is, Indian students go abroad to study, and sometimes they are moonlighting or they have jobs, etc. So they need to make sure that, if
Right.
necessary, that income has to be reported in both the countries. I mean, the US also tax worldwide income, and in India, if you are not overseas for, if you are within India for 182 days in a year, you are still. So in the year they are leaving or in the year they are returning, they need to make sure that they report their overseas income in India as well. And information exchange does take place.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
That's
And do you
something to be
think,
cautious about.
right, so if someone's a student and has come to the US and has actually missed filing their taxes for a specific year, do you think they still have the time to do it?
Oh, yes. One of the things that has been done in this year's budget is that the time to file an amended return. So
Okay.
the finance minister spoke about being more trusting, and she's instructed her officers and laid down certain policies where you are expected to follow the law, and the amount of scrutiny or questioning will be very few, less than 1% of the returns. So, but one of the things they've done is they gather a lot of information now. There's a lot of, whether you call it AI or big data, there's a lot of reporting that goes in from the banks and expenditures, overseas travel agencies, foreign exchange. So they have a lot of data, and very often people get emails from the tax department saying, "We've noted these things," but they don't get on your case immediately. They give you a chance to update your return. So there's a return form which has the letter U attached to it. Which, so they used to give you a few months, that if you had to file your return by June or July, you had up till December to file an updated return. If you think that you had forgotten, or the tax department sent you an email and reminded you that you had forgotten to report some income. Now they've extended that by a longer period. I think you have an additional year to amend your return in
Oh,
case you've
wow.
forgotten certain income.
Yeah,
So that allows
that's
people to
amazing.
come clean without any penalties or penal consequences if they've overlooked, or they get a gentle reminder from the department.
Got it. Okay. And what do you think would someone who's an NRI, who's been outside of the country for 20 years, 30 years, um,
Yes.
don't have a citizenship status in either of the countries? So they're probably, I'm thinking, if Bharat is or India is their homeland country, do you suggest they should still continue filing their taxes in that country?
No, I think they should file only if it's strictly as per the requirements, which, I would defer to a practicing chartered accountant who's practicing in
Right.
the tax space. I don't want to get specific, but there are certain rules which generally they apply with the number of days you spend in the year in the country, and the number of days you spend in a block of 4 years, and the number of years that you are deemed resident in a block of 10 years. So if someone has literally, never had to never been deemed to be resident or non-resident Indian but having Indian sourced income for the last 10 years, then they probably don't need to file in India, but they should consult their specialist for that, because you don't want to be on the wrong side of that.
Got it. Okay. Great, great
If in
answer.
doubt, it's better to file, is the way I look at it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Coming from the expert, you all heard him. If in doubt, better to file. Um, what's your take on somebody who's been probably, let's say, again, I'm coming back to NRI because I that's the area of my expertise. If someone's been in the US for long enough to, let's say, 10 years, but has been consistently filing in India and has no income in India,
Yeah.
um, does that have any effect, any impact, any benefits?
No, I think if you don't have income and you've been filing for 10 years, you probably don't need to. But I said it's a very
Good.
specific question. I don't want to give a categorical answer. I'm not a specialist in that area. I'm
Got
not
it.
practicing for, as you
Got
know,
it.
for more than 20 years now. I've been in
Yeah,
investment management for more than 20 years now.
got it. Okay. Well, let's
Yeah.
talk from the employer's lens now, right? This is all for people who are filing their individual taxes, right? From an
Yeah.
employer standpoint, what has this year's budget done? Supportive, not supportive, difficult, not difficult? How does that work?
Well, so the biggest head of expenditure in the budget is still the defense budget,
Yeah,
and then other ministries, agriculture, rural development, the home ministry, infrastructure, commerce, etc. So there are some export promotion, ease of business measures. There's still, as I said, 11 trillion, 11 lakh crores almost of capital expenditure. So the fad or the performing sectors have been defense oriented and public sector enterprises, etc., because of that government expenditure. But now we also expect the consumption oriented companies to receive a boost in their revenues because of this tax bonanza, which was designed to spur increased consumption. So I think those companies will also benefit. This is indirect. This is not a tax benefit.
mm-hmm.
This is more of a growth stimulus benefit, but it's consumption oriented this year. Uh, and an event that happened after the budget this Friday was the Monetary Policy Committee of the RBI met, and they have, after a number of years, after 4 years, they have cut the benchmark interest rate in India by 25 bips. That's quarter of a percent. So that should also reduce the home loan costs and general lending costs for consumers, and also the lending costs or the borrowing costs for uh, corporates. So that's
Got it.
another stimulating effect. We don't know how deep this rate cutting cycle will be, but it's commenced.
That's amazing. Okay. And so if there's foreign direct investment or funds that are coming outside of India, is there any other benefits for FDIs or motivation for the
There
FDI?
was at least one major change in FDI, and maybe this is a precursor to Prime Minister's visit to the US, which is happening on Valentine's Day. He'll be in the White House with
Yes.
President Trump celebrating Valentine's Day, I
Yeah.
presume. That insurance sector has now been opened up for 100% FDI. I think this was something that the US insurance companies wanted, that they want to come and invest in India, but they want to have full control. So till now it was they were allowed up to 74, but now been allowed 100. So that's one change in FDI. FDI has gone down, and I think there's not much more the government can do. Almost all sectors are open to FDI, and we have been receiving a lot of FDI, but for the last 12 or 24 months, it's been tapering off, and I think that's to do more with what's happening in the rest of the world. Some
Right.
reshoring is happening in America and things like that. There is also a special program in this year's budget to uh, further facilitate GCCs, Global Competency Centers, which
Okay.
are mainly American or other country multinationals, which base a lot of their back office work in India. Many
Okay.
companies have one third of their employee
Right.
base in India, and any process that doesn't require physical presence is
Yes.
pushed off to there's a cost arbitrage, but there's also
Mhm.
competency. So these are called global competency centers. So the incentive now is to push those out into second tier cities, so that we don't have so many people having to leave their smaller towns and come to the Bangalore's and Mumbai's and Delhi's, but to have GCCs opening up in maybe 100 second tier cities of India. So there's some provisions in the budget to ease that, to facilitate that. A lot of
Interesting.
the additional work on that will have to be done in the states, but the government has created a program to help the states to do that, each of the
Yeah.
states to develop that.
Got it. Amazing. So, if you're an employer who has back end offices in India and you're hearing this, remember there is some concessions or budget revisions this time for GCC. So, go on, read about it, contact your tax consultant, and let them advise you on what's best for you when, while you're making your decisions of what you want to do on your back end offices back home in India. Um, Vikramji, lastly, let's talk about how this budget is going to overall have effect on the political administration that's currently in party or in home, which is the BJP.
Well, I people may think that with 240 seats and a bit of support from the Bihar and Andhra Pradesh governments, the government is not that stable. But I am very confident that it's very stable. In fact, the budget, some of the opposition MPs were hooting, uh, but because they were worried, the budget mentioned the state of Bihar many times. So a number of special allocations were made. It's the government of India budget. It doesn't need to really talk about one state. But I don't want to take a superficial thing that, oh, it's because Bihar elections will be coming up soon, and but it's also because Bihar is the state with the maximum headroom to improve.
Yes,
And I think it behooves all the rest of the country to understand that if Bihar gets uplifted, the whole country gets uplifted.
yes,
If
yes,
Bihar's birth rate comes down, if Bihar's women are more emancipated, if they are able to if they are more secure, if incomes rise in Bihar, if there's more job skilling in Bihar, if agricultural improvements take place in Bihar, of course, in the rest of India, there are 100 out of 800 districts, there are 100 districts which need, but many of those districts are in Bihar. So, yes, I don't see any, um, political instability to the central government. And I think the Delhi results have proved that. And the effect of the Delhi results, if we again drift off out away from the budget into politics, the effect of the Delhi results is going to be felt in Punjab as well, because that's the party that has lost power in Delhi, the so-called Aam Aadmi Party. Its only
yes,
other place where it is governing is Punjab,
yeah.
and the ripple effect of that is going to be seen. I just, if I may, an anecdote. Today, for the first time in independent India's history, the National Capital Region and all the that is the NCTD, the National Capital Territory of Delhi, has a BJP government, and all the adjoining states, which also are part of the National Capital Region, which is Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and Rajasthan, all of them have governments from the same party. So we should expect that whole region to have a much more coherent, cohesive development. So I have my wife actually farms in Haryana, very close to the Yamuna River, in the district of Yamunanagar. So I know that the Yamuna is clean and full flowing upstream. And yet, when we reach Delhi, the ex chief minister claimed that it was poisoned, but we know it is polluted, and and that actually the problem was happening inside Delhi. Accusations to upstream riparian state, you can say Haryana, were political but not factual. So I think
Right.
today we'll have a coordinated administration. I am expecting to see a riverbank development in Delhi's Yamuna, which will look like what we have seen in Ahmedabad on the Sabarmati, or
Yeah,
what we see today even in Prayagraj, how it
yes,
looks. I was just
yes.
there for the on Mani Amavas, to be precise. So I have a first-hand experience of that as well.
That's fab. Tell us, lastly, tell us more about how the taxation, like in general, the tax impact, do you see that more and more they're easing taxes, meaning in terms of for local Aam Aadmi, right? The common people or the middle class, you said yes, they raised it to 12 lakhs.
Yes.
Um, Let me rephrase this. Are there minimum wages in Bharat?
Yes, there are, and they are different for urban and rural, and different by different states as well. Just like in the US, I think the minimum wages are different across
Yes.
different states. I
Yes.
think from $7 to $17 in DC, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is
So
correct.
of course, the minimum wages in India have been revised upwards, and but it's different for agricultural labor in the state of Haryana and say urban worker in the city of Mumbai. So there are a number of such tables, and they are adhered to.
And that's where I was going. Are there changes in that? I think a common man would want to see a change in that because that directly affects the income, hence affects the taxations overall, right? So minimum wage, like, are you seeing there is progress in
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So first to clarify that that is not a subject of the budget. That's handled by the labor ministry at the center and the states, and it's based on inflation. And India is a hugely worker, maybe population surplus, worker surplus, labor surplus country. So it's a tricky policy subject because if you hike the minimum wages too much, you actually don't generate employment. So
Right.
sometimes you need to hold the minimum wage so that you have a rate that at least generates
Steady.
employment. Yeah.
Got it.
But the government effort has been towards expenditure on job skilling. So there's now a database, and also on negotiating labor mobility with various countries. I'm expecting the subject to come up even in the Prime Minister's discussions with President Trump next week, because after all, the US also wants to have a better balanced trade, and so atomic energy, defense, almonds we already import, but walnuts or something around that, and Harley Davidson motorcycles. But from our side, from the Indian point of view, we don't want people to be going on those donkey flights, but we do want to fill in those labor gaps if there's going to be
Yes.
reshoring in the US. So we want some kind of guest worker program, and I think this kind of discussion is happening with the UK, with Germany, and it's going to happen with the US as well.
That's amazing. Vikramji, I genuinely thank you for your time. It was very resourceful, and I know a lot of my viewers are going to have a lot of follow-up questions. You're welcome to send us those questions on my YouTube page under this link below. We will hear your questions. If we need to reach out to Vikramji with further clarifications, I'm sure I can reach out to him and at least either get you to responses, or if your questions are extensive, then maybe I'll request him for another podcast here live on my show, Satat Swadharma. But again, thank you all for watching. Stay updated, stay aware, stay awakened as Bharat stays awakened. Thank you, Vikramji, again. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, Megha ji. Happy to be here.